Welcome to the Startup Support Surgery podcast, where we light the entrepreneurial spark in medics and healthcare professionals. Join me, Dr. Jo Watkins, GP, business coach and co-founder of The How People, on a journey to discover where your medical know-how meets the business world. This will help you find some clarity on how to balance work, passions and family so that you can gain more freedom and control over your life, but also continue to help people, which is actually why most of us went into medicine to start with. Embarking on this entrepreneurial adventure is not easy. It is a roller coaster of emotions, but it's hugely rewarding and exciting in the process. Drawing on my 20 years of blending medicine and business as a GP, I am here to share experiences, insights and lessons. Expect lively chats, expert interviews and real-life stories from medics who have taken their own path. Let's break free from traditional healthcare norms and explore more innovative ways of making a real difference to people's health and well-being, along with paving the way for a brighter future for us as healthcare professionals. Oh, don't miss my free PDF called From Stethoscope to Startup, which is an 11-page guide in the show notes full of practical help and advice. This is your roadmap to kickstarting your journey with us. Enjoy the show. Welcome to this week's episode, which I've been very excited about. So many of you tell me that you're thinking about starting something new. Maybe it's a coaching offer, maybe it's something in the wellness space, maybe it's even feeling a little bit techie. But let's be honest, it's all a little bit terrifying, isn't it? And we talk about that with all the guests that come on here. I found a list recently on LinkedIn, which was called 16 Truths About Being Self-Employed. Now, I didn't write this myself, but I genuinely could have had. Everything in there resonated and rung true, including building a business with no team and people wondering if you're going completely and utterly mad. Today's special guest is Amber Vodegel. She has founded 3 health tech platforms, including one that reached over 150 million people, and she is now working on a really exciting new project. But this interview is not about shiny exits or Silicon Valley hype. It is about doing business differently. It's about no selling data, no cloud servers, no creepy algorithms. It's just about mission-led health tech opportunities with integrity. This is a conversation about building small, thinking big, and staying really grounded along the way that I've been super excited about having since I listened to Amber speak at an event in London a few months ago. And her fact for the day is that she wrote a maths book when she was about 26 with her mother. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for having me, by the way. I'm bringing this up.
Well, it's always fun. I like to introduce people with some ridiculous fact that nobody ever knows about them. So, Amber, before we talk about your current very exciting project, can we go right back? And can you kind of tell us a little bit about what life looked like before you started creating your first app?
I'm Dutch, hence the funny accent, as I always say. I've been in the UK for 21 years, but I grew up in Holland in a tiny village with a windmill and a dike, and had a brilliant time. Difficult times as well. I think that forms you, that builds resilience. There was once a TED talk said the advantages of a bad childhood. And I loved the paradox there. Studied finance, started in finance in Holland. Pretty quickly, I realized I made the wrong decision. So when I later, for a job, moved to the UK, when I was 30, decided to change my career and met an owner of an advertising agency. And he said, why don't you come and join the advertising space, which was incredibly new, digital advertising in 2006-07. But I did. I changed careers, halved my salary, started all over again, and I had a brilliant time. Loved the agency world, loved the digital space. And from there, I got to know about the mobile app world in early 2008 and launched my first app in 2009 on the side, because the CEO of that advertising agency was kind enough to let us set up companies on the side in the evening if we wanted.
Amazing. And this must be like this is really at the beginning of this.
Very, very early on. The first app I launched was early 2009. And it was not so crowded as it is today. And apps were also a bit of a gimmick. So when I would tell my friends, they would laugh because websites were the cool thing in those days. And mobile apps were not taking that seriously. So
right.
I don't think anyone could have predicted how massive that industry became later.
So this was something you were doing on the side in a new job. The advertising, the CEO was letting you guys do whatever you wanted in your outside of the kind of corporate bubble that you were in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is amazing. I'm not sure. I wonder if that still happens. But you've talked about bootstrapping this business. Were there moments in these early days where you thought you were kind of in way over your head, or did this just feel like the right space for you?
Absolutely. I made many mistakes, and actually I set up 3 different companies. So the first one I set up with a friend. Lesson number 1 is do not start companies with friends. And it was pretty amateur what we did. But I got excited, and I think that made me start a second company, and we launched 2 or 3 apps within the second company. And we got scale. So that second app business reached about 1 million users. So I could feel that there was something that we got right this time, but it wasn't professional. So then I set up the third company. And with the learnings from the first 2, we had enough knowledge, and I collected better people to work with. I took the big step to give up my job 6 months into that business as well. And really scaled from there. But yeah, there were loads of mistakes. And sometimes the best thing is to start again with a fresh new company.
Right. That's really interesting. So all of those the 2 companies before the third company, you were still working?
I was still working. I was still working with the third because I made myself a promise that I would have at least the income generated that would replace the income that I had from my job, because I just had a small baby, and I just felt the responsibility to supply enough funds to continue, of course.
Yeah. And that's a problem that a lot of people who I talk to, they wonder when that tipping point is. And it's difficult. I think you were in the finance and advertising world. A lot of my clients are in the medical world. They get paid very well for showing up to work, doing their job and coming home again. And I think it's so important for you to have some funds when you are scaling a business, isn't it? And starting out, to have that, to come from a place of complete lack of money coming into the household. If you walk away from your job before you started your business, that feels like a very vulnerable position. And I love that, this concept of waiting until you'd earned as much. I mean, would you do that again? What advice would you give to somebody that's saying, I'm just going to quit everything and walk away and then start a business? What would you say to them?
Everyone's different. For me, I needed that security. And the only sacrifice I had to make, and what I also advise to everyone who wants to do this, is do not watch Netflix, at least not 7 days a week. Keep the Netflix evening for the Wednesday and maybe the Saturday and Sunday. If you have 4 evenings spare, because I used to work from 7 till 11, so I had those hours. But I also worked a lot on the train towards work and on the way back. And that's how I built that company, and I took my time. But it does mean you can't watch series after series, because that spare time, that's where you can really invest to build the next business and test out the next business. And you need very little money sometimes to see if there's traction, get a little bit of revenue, and then build from there. Yeah.
So this is, using our time smartly, isn't it? You can't build a business on fresh air. So you're going to have to make compromises. And I love this. The Netflix analogy is so true, isn't it? You're going to have to find the time somewhere, and you need the revenue, you need the time. We all want to have this work-life balance, but starting a business does involve late nights, early mornings, sacrifices, not going out on the weekend so you feel rough all day on a Sunday, like you say, not sitting there and binge watching 4 hours of Netflix. Whatever it takes to find those sort of pockets of time to get that idea validated and that traction and that first bit of revenue to get you started.
Yeah, Netflix is brilliant. I'm a human being as well, and I love the entertainment in the series, but it is the morphine of the masses. It's absolutely fascinating how much time, but also the TikToks and the Snapchats of this world, how much time they manage to take away from us and what we can do with that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Great
it's
advice
a
there.
decision you make.
Yeah. What about your sort of personal and professional values as you've then gone into this, the advertising, from the advertising space into this, your third business that you then, I think you were bought out, were you, with your third app? Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
So as an app developer, you expect a lot of things, but what I never expected was to reach 150 million women, pregnant women to date. So that comes with a big responsibility. What are you going to say to 2 million pregnant women a day that are on our platform? And soon you realize that it's not rocket science. It's the simple messages like, please don't drink any alcohol while you're pregnant, that really make a difference. Because there's lots of women that still have people around them that smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol while they're pregnant, and they see that as normal. We're also in 100 countries, 25 languages, so the advice is quite varied all over the world, but the basics are still very similar.
Yeah.
I never took any investment, so no venture capital or VC money, as it's called. Not because I didn't want it, I just simply didn't know it existed. So we did old school, made some money, then reinvested in the company, made some more and reinvested it. Always be very frugal, so very tight on the cost, make sure all the money that we spent was necessary and build from there. You have to do a lot of your own work in the beginning. If you bootstrap is like you fund it without yourself with revenues of the company. So I would read most of the customer service tickets, and there were a lot of them. But that made it you can really connect with your users. So it's all these little things that make it different. I think less money makes you ultimately more creative.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it makes you more ethical, because if you get 10 million funding from an investor, they want to see that 10x, 20x back. So 20 times what they put in, they want to see as a return value of the company. So that means that if you get commercial deals, you have very little choice but to accept them. And you can argue against that, but ultimately you went ahead with a contract and they will push you to make those revenues. People kind of often post-rationalize. They said, oh, I did that partnership because ultimately it's good, but it quite often isn't. Like selling cellulite creams to pregnant women, we never did those partnerships because we knew it's nonsense. Hey, you don't want to scaremonger women in body shaming, that their body is changing in pregnancy, but also why would they spend 80 quid on a cream that doesn't even work? Because all you can do is drink a bit more water, walk a bit more often, and the rest is genetics. So we rather have the women spend that £80 on something else. But that does mean saying no to £100,000 partnership.
Yeah.
Because if you're not VC back, you can make those decisions. And the value of that is incredible.
Right. I love this. So we need to dig into this a little bit more for those people that maybe don't understand that VC concept, because I'm seeing a lot of health tech businesses starting up with funding straight from the off, and maybe funding for like a couple of years, and then they're doing, they're basically burning out and burning through that money, and then they're looking for more money, and then eventually it's not a sustainable business, and they're then just disappearing. So you said that you didn't have it because you didn't know about it at the time. Would you change anything? And what do you feel about those really early stage companies that are going for VC funding very early?
It depends on the product. So if you need a lot of money up front for large research studies or clinical trials, you probably have no other option to do that. But if you have the option to start smaller and get some angels on board, or maybe some investment from family and friends, I would highly recommend you start from that base, because it gives you less pressure, you have more ethical freedom, to make the right decisions. And you can, I think you ultimately can build a better product for your end user. Because today, I go a lot to these tech conferences and they say, oh, the future of health is amazing because there's AI and there's Aura rings and watch trackers and subscriptions and consultations. And then I always think, for who is it going to be amazing? Because that's for the 5% of society who don't mind paying £5 or £6 a month for a Headspace app or a period tracker. And they don't mind buying a $400 Aura ring to link up, or a thermometer or a weighing scale or whatever an employer app. Because the employer apps, for example, there's always people say, oh, we're doing insurance models for employer apps. But that's also only for the top layer of society. Because if you're the cleaning lady at the local coffee shop, there is no free app. Your employer doesn't have that. And your insurance doesn't give those. If you're not in the private insurance part, you don't have those free apps. So I felt a little bit disillusioned, and especially with women's health. Ultimately, everyone is trying to sell something to someone, and women do not need to be sold anything. They just want to know what's going on, is it normal, and who can I talk to, or where can I learn? No subscriptions. Why is a period tracker paywalled? Why do I only get health insights when I pay the subscription? So we're trying to make something for the 80%, and I think there's a need that we're going to serve the 80%, and we can't do that if we heavily rely on large commercial companies funding these systems, because ultimately the user becomes the product.
So tell us about it. Tell us about 28X, because this is your new business and your new app that is going to help the 80%, isn't it?
Let's hope. We're working day and night to make it happen. So I was going to retire, play tennis, look after the kids after the exit, like most exited founders did. Then I read a book called Moral Ambition by Rutger Bregman. It's a Dutch writer, but it's translated in English. Highly recommend reading it. And it basically said the biggest waste of our generation is a waste of talent. Our cleverest minds, our mathematicians are working to optimize Facebook feeds and TikTok algorithms, while we should be working on climate change and cancers and obesity. So I thought, you know what? Because are you a 1 or a 0? That's the question. Are you going to help or are you not going to help? And I thought, let's do one more app. Because the current period trackers, Clue, Flow, Natural Cycles, they are amazing. I mean, they've done an excellent job, and I'm really glad they are there. But they are heavily backed by VCs, and I think we can do better. So we want to make something, they can serve the 5% of society, the top layer. We'd like to do the 80% in over 100 countries. So completely free. That's one. No insights behind paywalls, no content behind paywalls, no features behind paywalls. And the data should be completely safe. Why is everything stored on Californian and European cloud servers? That can be turned off any moment if Trump gets upset. I wonder what's going to happen. But also, governments can look into your data. Women get they can get convicted in the US based on their data if they suspect abortion. So we should give women the power back of having their own data. So that's the second pillar. And then the third is accessibility. A lot of these products are optimized for the high income consumers. So they don't translate to minority languages. They don't cater for 12-year-old girls because there's no money to be made. They're focused on fertility and menopause because that's the high revenue streams they can make money off. This is also catering for menopause and fertility and all that, but it's for everyone. So we also have 3 reading levels in the app. So if you're dyslexic or you're very young or you're just less educated, you can choose a lower reading level, but it's done in a really cool way where you just say, please, can I have short text because I don't really like reading. And then the whole app gets made super simple. There's a lot of cultural differences. Not everyone wants to see blood or can talk about it. I'm all for menstrual health and openness, but a large portion of the world population cannot talk about it. But we still need to educate them. And then there's more than just periods, because we also have about 100 health topics that we educate people on. How to check your breast for lumps, because your mother has never been taught how to check her breast for lumps, so she can't teach you. Your doctor doesn't have time. I mean, I've never been to a GP that said, go and sit down, let me teach you this. And your teacher will not go there. So who's going to teach a woman how to check her breast for lumps? So we have like a 4-minute course in the app to teach you that. So it's a 3 pillars, completely free, completely safe, and accessible for everyone.
Amazing. How are you doing this? Is this you giving back? This is or are you monetizing this in other ways? Like how is this working as a business model?
Yeah, that's a good question. So initially, I'm not in it for the money, although we have some investors, some philanthropic investors. We will pay them back 5-7x there. So if you put in 50K, we'll pay you 250 back within 5 years. So it's a really good return. But I made a pledge myself that we are predicted to make about 35 million EBITDA in year 5 if we get to the scale that I think we can get to. I'm the biggest shareholder. I don't need 20 million a year. So I made a pledge that I would donate the majority of all those profits back into the system. So I can never take more. And that's why I love saying this publicly as well, because then people can hold me to it. Even if we get to that scale, I will never take more than 500,000 a year, 500K. Everything else, so 24.5 million, will be donated back through a foundation, back to period poverty, education at schools, healthcare research, backing other female founders with their businesses. So we're trying to set up a circular company. I didn't set up this company to make money. I set it up because I want to show the world as a better example. But we will make a lot of money because there's brands that want to sponsor this. We already have a lot of interest. Yeah. We have e-pharmacy in the app. We'll do menstrual stem cell donation. There's lots of revenue streams that will be there without getting subscriptions or compromising the privacy of the user.
Yeah, got it. So do you think, has everything else you've done up to this point been building up to this? Does this feel like the thing that you were put on the planet to do? You talked about, the kids and playing tennis and giving back, and I can imagine you sitting there for 5 minutes, and then thinking, what am I going to do next? That whole, am I a 1 or am I a 0? Does it feel like everything's been building to this?
I don't know. It feels like we're on a good path because I've met so many amazing people on this journey. We have over 100 health ambassadors that want to chip in and just help. There's people ringing me saying, tell me, I've got a few hours spare every week. How can I help? Or can I write content for your app? Or I know I can introduce you to these institutions, or I know influencers who can amplify it. So you feel you're on the right track because it's almost like the universe is helping you if such a thing exists. I think people like hearing that is finally something that is there for the right reason, so it resonates. Yeah. So it is probably the right track because of what it is. Yeah. I don't know what I'll be doing in 10 years. I hope to keep this company because I also don't believe in all these exits to the US. Yeah. I mean, in the old days, you would build a company for your grandchildren and you would be proud and you would make sure the users were satisfied. Today, it's like make as much money, scale as quickly as possible, and then exit and then go sit on a boat. I mean, that is not working. So ideally, I'd like to keep it and maybe hand it over to my grandchildren later, this business.
Love it. You're building, building a legacy and building a purpose-driven business that is using all of your skill set, all of the people that you've met along the way, all of the contacts. You've got this. It just feels like it's all meant to be, and you're building something that you want to keep hold of because you're so proud of it. And I think that's wonderful. And this is around values, isn't it? And ethics. And I think doctors that are going into business often struggle with lots of different things. They struggle with charging and pricing, but they struggle with this sort of like business and ethics piece. And I think, what you've described is that those things can work together. What would you say to somebody that's sort of starting out who's maybe come from a healthcare background, who's a bit scared of that sort of selling and judgment of selling. I have people say, oh, I hate the idea of selling. And, when you're in the advertising space, sales is in your blood, isn't it? Mm. But for healthcare professionals, often it's difficult. What would you say to people that are worried about that ethical selling concept?
You mean at start a company that you almost have to sell your soul and get into the right business that you believe in, and it makes it a lot easier to talk about and you don't feel like it's selling. But secondly, I think recognize what you can and can't do, because you might then find a co-founder that loves telling the story where you're doing more of the clinical work in the background. So a co-founder is a brilliant idea, and maybe even two co-founders, because it makes you less stressed. You can spread the risk and you can also divide the tasks. But don't start it with friends. Start it with people that you admire and respect for that part, what they can deliver, what you can't do. So my co-founder is a CEO of a very large digital agency. He ships 10 digital products a year. He's very talented and has 40 people staff. And he is, even though I did a lot of the app development myself, he's just better at building these products and churning them out and making sure that they deliver. So for me, that's I can then spend time on the strategy and on the marketing. So that's a huge relief. So always team up and be very critical about what your talents are and what they're not. Yeah,
and find somebody that fills that gap. And I think there are lots of ways of doing that now, aren't there? I think having a co-founder is one way of doing it. There are also people that you can find who can support you in more of a kind of project-based capacity. So if you feel like you need somebody to help you with operations and strategy as you begin, you might be able to find somebody that you can work with for 6 months. And then if it works and you enjoy that relationship, then they could come on board as a co-founder. It's being curious, isn't it, about other people and how you may be able to work together, as opposed to sitting in a dark room, creating something that you think is the answer to everybody's problems, and then going out there and hoping that you've got a fit. You've got to get out there first and talk to people, haven't you?
Exactly. And, if you find two other people that like your idea, then you can each commit 10,000. Then you already have 30,000 starting capital. And it's much more fun than doing it on your own. And you'll probably enjoy the journey.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't talk to somebody in health tech without talking about AI and about, what's gone on. You mentioned that you were here, you were in this space back in, what did you say, 2006? Well, no, 2008, 9. So much has changed. How do you see this kind of panning out? What do you think the future looks like for us? I know you mentioned about health tech, and I agree with you that apps are not always not the answer, but we're in a space now where people are generally coming up with things very quickly that I feel are not the solution to any kind of problem. So where are we going to sit in this world of AI, health tech, and healthcare?
Oh, there's so much to say about that. First of all, I think it will help with a lot of the admin work for doctors. So I think the amount of, if you have a consultation with a doctor, the amount of forms they have to fill in is hideous. So if AI can alleviate that, your doctor can actually have a conversation with you and focus on the patient. So hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of the admin side, all the forms will be gone automatically. Secondly, I was at a dinner last week with 30 women in tech, and we had one of the discussions was healthcare. A lot of them already use these large language models like ChatGPT for their healthcare questions. And then we said, we were challenging the women who said they were using that, saying, do you trust it more than your doctor? And they said, well, we actually do, because you can keep asking questions. Whereas with the doctor or your GP, you feel embarrassed if you keep asking. But here I can spend half an hour just saying, well, what do you mean? But what if I also have this symptom, and explain that word to me, something that they would not have the time for as a doctor. So whether we like it or not, I think people will move to these platforms to answer their questions. So the next question is that validated content they're going to find there? So that's super important. But I think it's a good thing because the better prepared you are, and hopefully these language models can deliver something in the future where they say, thanks for all these questions. Now please go and see a GP and point out these 5 symptoms and ask those 3 questions. So hopefully these language models will prepare you better for your visit. And then the third thing is privacy. So I am worried about everyone entering all their health data onto these large language models, because it's okay that I get retargeted with fancy holidays and garden furniture or whatever I buy on Amazon. My cookies are everywhere. But when it comes to my health, in the future, AI will do our recruitment and decide whether or not we will be eligible for health insurance. And if these large language models know so much about me and also so much about my health, I wonder who's going to get a job in the future. The woman who is looking to get pregnant or the one who isn't? Who's going to get a better health insurance? The guy who looked up articles on testicular cancer or the one who didn't? So these are worrying things because these AI models are like a black box. You can't really know, you can't prove what data they've used to make their decisions, and they will be optimized for success. Ultimately, those models and those software platforms that will do pre-recruitment and vetting of insurance will be optimized for commercial outcomes.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
So we need to be we are used to telling all these platforms what we like to buy. We are not used to telling them about our mental health or our health. And we are starting to do this more and more. And that's why platforms like 28X protect the user, because we use on-device AI. So there's nothing going to a cloud server, nowhere. And I actually want to pledge also to make that backend open source, to provide a blueprint that if other companies want to make similar apps, they can use our technology without having to start from scratch to build something similar and save the cost. So if anyone is looking to build something like this, then we can maybe fund parts of it together, happily doing that, because it's needed. It's needed that we have different architectural systems to provide the privacy.
So we are going to, I could talk to you for hours, but we are going to wrap it up because we keep these episodes nice and short so people can listen to them on their commute. You've given us so many gems here, but if you were talking to somebody that's dreaming about starting out, somebody that's a medical or a healthcare professional who wants to start their own thing, something ethical, something in line with their values, something that's going to make a difference, what would be your 3 kind of top tips to somebody really early on in the process?
It's not about the idea. People always think, I've got an amazing idea. It's about your execution. So who can you find to team up with? How are you going to do it? Test it out. Stop watching Netflix and just give it a go. You can start small, just see if you like it. Entrepreneurship is not fun. It's like I get up most mornings thinking, what the hell have I started? And why can't I just play tennis or have a normal job? Because it's hard work. It's not easy. It's rewarding, but it's not an easy path. So maybe just try with something small, see if you like it, and then enjoy the journey. And don't follow the money. The money will come when you have something that's built for users.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's I think people do sometimes. I think less so medics, but certainly that is a distraction, isn't it? What could bring the money in when you actually go off path? So I think, think about the execution. It's not about the idea, like you say. How are you going to make this happen? How are you going to find that, minimum viable product or thing, like that first couple of steps? Like, how are you actually going to get some traction and get somebody to pay for your services? You're not going to sit watching Netflix. You are going to wish that you were playing tennis and playing with your children sometimes. Because it is not for everybody. And I have this, I call it the Clarity Starter Kit, which is basically like the first 3 modules of a course that walks people through the first 3 stages with one-to-one help and support for like a 4-month period for people to try it out. Because I think at the end of that 3 or 4 months, if you've done the work and done the learning, you will know whether this is for you. And if it isn't for you, that's okay. I think regretting not having a go is you don't want to be in that position either. So giving something a go, finding the right people to support you and enjoying it.
Ask for feedback. I pitched my idea to over 300 people last year, and random people, friends, family, and then it became like people I met on LinkedIn. You refine your idea more and more the more you talk to people and you get feedback, and the more you hang out with entrepreneurs, the more you become an entrepreneur. Behavior is contagious. So hang out with people that have done it before. Maybe join a startup. Just don't give up your job. Just say, can I commit a few hours a week and join a startup pro bono? Just learn from other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, love it. Let's leave it there. Amber, you've been a joy. We're going to put everything in the show notes. I can't wait to see what happens with 28X. We'll be following your journey closely, and I really, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jo, for having me. Lovely.
I hope this episode has sparked some new ideas or challenged your thinking. Transitioning from medicine to business is not easy. It's about adapting our skills while embracing the unknowns of entrepreneurship. It can be nerve-wracking, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. Please feel free to reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just shoot me an email at jo@bendylegs.com for support. And don't forget to grab the free PDF from the show notes, From Stethoscope to Startup, which is your go-to guide and resource for diving into entrepreneurship. Many thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Thanks for spending your precious time with me.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.